When constantly trying to scan the horizon for possible threats that you need to prepare for, it's really easy to sink into feelings of doom and gloom. It's easy to think that things are getting much worse, even though there's actually evidence that things have never been better. It's easy to feel that the world is crashing down everywhere, on fire, and unrepairable, though there is actually much cause for optimism. So knowing this, why is it so hard to escape that feeling that it's all going to crash down around us? Let's talk about it for a moment and try to put things in perspective. Download the Start Preparing Survival Guide to help you prepare for any disaster. I'll post a link in the description and comments section below, or visit cityprepping.com/get started for a free guide to help you get started on your journey of preparedness. If we haven't met before, my name is Chris, and on this channel we discuss emergency preparedness, aka prepping. From time to time, I try to introduce videos that hopefully will bring some balance to the channel. It can feel like we're living through what's called TEOTWAWKI, or the end of the world as we know it. We're constantly being bombarded with bad news daily, and admittedly, I have to personally fight this feeling of impending doom on a regular basis myself. I was recently speaking with a friend that admitted he has to give my videos a few days before he can actually watch them in order to prepare himself mentally, as he knows I'll likely convey the unvarnished truth. And like many of us, he's seeking to really understand the events that are happening in the world that is and will continue to change our collective futures. Like myself, he's a family man, and he really wants to prepare himself and his family the best that he can. And I try my hardest with each video to not only give and to lay out the challenges that we all collectively face, but to give some practical, actionable advice. And I'll also share some practical advice I personally follow to get me through these tough times, so I would encourage you to definitely stick around until the end. All right, having said that, when prepping and following the news today, you have to keep things in perspective. It's easy to really feel like the world is falling apart. And in reality, some parts of the world are actually unraveling. And some global systems that we rely upon, they are literally falling apart. And it's already happening. If you are actively engaged in defending your homeland, like the Ukrainians, or maybe you're fighting in a war that you would rather not be in, like some of the Russian soldiers, for some individuals, they're at the risk of their country slipping into authoritarianism, like those in Hong Kong, or your country's economy is in free fall, like countries such as in Sri Lanka and Lebanon. Well, then of course, you have the right to feel that the world is falling apart. But most of the world's population is not in these locations though. So for a moment, let's try to pull back and take some positive news and try to look at things from, how should I put it? I'm trying to just give you some different perspective here to hopefully balance you out. Most of the world's population, while they do have minor problems, there's also a lot of reason to be optimistic about the time that we live in. We're living longer. We have never before in our history produced so much food. And while the prosperity line may be trending downwards toward a global recession at the moment, it is, if you were to, again, zoom out and look, it's essentially on an upward trend over the last several decades. And we have experienced supply chain failures in the past. We have experienced crop failures. We have experienced wars, authoritarianism, things like famine, Great Depressions, and plagues. As a species on this planet, we continue to survive through it all, despite all the challenges that we have gone through. And if we're being honest with ourselves, it's the challenges that ultimately made us who we are today, to make us stronger. And you likely came to the preparedness community for maybe two reasons. First, you recognize the chaos in the world, and maybe through some occurrence that actually kind of caught you off guard and made your life difficult for a time. I know that's the story for a lot of people over the last few years. Second, you understood that preparing for life's chaotic experiences, it actually improves your life through these tumultuous times. The way I view it is prepping is like having a smooth, upgraded suspension on a rough and bumpy road versus just bouncing around so hard that you really can't even hold on to the steering wheel anymore. And there are the very real and practical things that you should be preparing for. You never know when the unexpected might happen. A layoff, a sudden medical expense, a massive storm, or even a power outage. And I believe prepping, it really provides you with more stability through these challenges. And not only just our daily challenges, but if we continue to see some of the existential threats that we face collectively at this moment continue to escalate, we may need to rely upon the supplies and skills that we develop even more. And here's the thing, even though most people know everything that I just laid out to be accurate and true, most will still fail to set aside even a few scraps to help them through what looks like will be difficult times that we're already going through and will probably continue to escalate over these next few years. A lot of people will come at it with a mindset that they know they should, but they just don't. Call it procrastination or avoidance of the future or whatever you want to call it. One thing is certain, your life will experience hard times. And that's just a fact, despite all the chaos happening at the moment in our world. And you can either prepare for them or you can succumb to them. And just as you will face hard times, any time that isn't especially hard is, let's be honest, it's the best of times. And when was the last time that you were really in tough times and you ended up reflecting on an even earlier time that you thought, hey, that time was so difficult? And you end up realizing, that was a pretty easy time that I went through. Those issues that I went through, they were minor compared to your current calamity. So it's easy to focus on the negative. I guess what I'm trying to say here is find ways to put things in perspective, because there will always be difficult times that we'll go through. Don't let that pull you down, I guess is kind of the takeaway here. So here's what I do. I reflect on three things when I feel so much doom and gloom that I really feel the world is ending. First, I think about how life goes on. Even as the world changes around us, humans seem to always plod along. And I think of family members before me that probably thought it was the end of the world during World War II, but they continued on. They had a family, they dealt with tough times, and I'm here today because they chose to push forward. Second, there's the old phrase, stay in your lane. And I reflect on the fact that I can't influence and change the course of the world entirely. I can only truly change my little piece of it. I can work on my portion of the world and on myself to be ready to really face whatever challenges life will ultimately throw at me. But sometimes I have to detach from all of that out there to focus on myself and my family. And that's the third thing that I reflect upon, family. Family is what makes me stronger. It's what motivates me. It's what keeps me moving forward. And more than anything else, I prep to make life better for my wife and my children. And if I can bring a few others along the way with me on this journey, great. At best, though, all I can hope for and prepare is for my future and not for everyone else's. Now, that doesn't make me any less caring of the others in the world. That isn't to say that I'm not deeply concerned about the chaos happening in the world. I am deeply concerned. It's one of the main reasons why I started this channel. It's just that spending all my time and energy fretting over those things that I really have no control over, I know at the end of the day it's not going to do me any good. And that's why I choose to focus on the practical. And again, trying to put things in perspective, we're not living through the high mortality rate of the Black Plague. Mass casualty events are fewer and further between. And for the most part, the majority of us don't live our lives under the constant threat of death. And let's be honest, we live in a time of opulence compared to some points in history. I have lived in third world countries where even the best of the life that you could experience there is comparable to some of the more challenging lives that individuals face here. And by no means am I diminishing what people are going through in this country, but I'm just trying to point out we have it pretty good despite all of our challenges. We're also living longer with the best medical care in human history. We have a government that somewhat functions well enough, at least to provide a generally secure enough world to have police, we have fire, we have medical services, freedom of travel, and the ability to pursue happiness. But here's the thing, happiness, it's really a choice. So too is the choice of how we view the world. Do we continue to stew in the doom and gloom, or do we keep our hands and mind busy with today's work to really build a better tomorrow for ourselves? And we may never actually be powerful enough individually to affect a change on a global level, but I have to believe that when we set our piece of the world right and we make it stronger, we contribute, I believe, to a greater whole, a greater stability. And that should encourage you to build and to find like-minded people. If you've been preparing for any length of time, you are going to weather whatever life throws at you better than most people probably will. And take some comfort when the doom and gloom, when those clouds appear, when they surround around you and they try to push you down. The reality is it has been worse. And how you choose to view the world is up to you. Well, whatever the calamity, it's not the whole world. And you have taken, and here's the thing, you have to acknowledge that you have taken some preliminary steps to position yourself and your family to really make it through to an even better tomorrow. And hopefully you've been following the advice that we lay out on this channel to prepare. If it is the whole world, even your best preps might not be enough to see you through. And we may be all suffering together at that point. So I can't focus on what's out of my control. I can only focus on what I can do to control the world that I have. And that's my home, my house, and that's about as far as I can go apart from my community. But on a personal level, there are some things that I've been working on lately. I'll share a few things here with you. This is something I'm not quite proud of, but hey, I finally got around to it. I finally completed my technician license for my ham radio. I say I'm not proud because I've always encouraged on this community to get that. I've just, for whatever reason, allowed procrastination to put it off. I went to take the test a few years ago. There has to be 3 testers, only 2 showed, and I was prepared. I was so frustrated, I ended up not really ever going back to retake it. I've kind of started off and on over the last few years, but what I finally was able to do to get me across the finish line is about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I went to the website, hamradioprep.com. You have to pay a fee for it. And I sat down for the day. I studied all the material. I went through everything for this ham radio technician's license. They just rolled out a new set of tests. Every 10 years they changed it, and I took the new course. I took the test. I did everything that you could in there, just kind of crammed it in that day. Went the next morning, took it, and ended up passing. After the second time, I ended up failing it, and I'll talk about that in a future video. But they do let you retake it. I was off by 1 point, but I ended up getting it. I just got my license the other day in the mail from the FCC, I believe. So finally got that done. And again, I'll put a link if you're interested in that site. I also have a coupon code. I am going to be doing a video in a couple of weeks explaining the process so you can follow along to see what it actually looks like. The other thing that I've been working on is, working on building out more solar generators and DIY setups. I just got this book, I'm pointing to it. And I'm going to be doing some videos here shortly on the channel showing you how to build your own setup. I'll be releasing some solar generator videos over the next coming months, so just know there's going to be a flurry of them. It's something that I'm so fascinated in. I've been working on kind of trying to convert this office into an off-grid setup, air conditioning and other stuff tied to the Lycan. It's from Renogy, the Lycan 5000. It's on the other side of this wall. It's tied to solar panels, and I'm able to power everything during the day. And then I also mentioned a few months ago about a generator box to quieten the noise. I'll be doing a video on that here shortly. I've been meaning to finish it. It's been brutally hot lately, so I found myself more in the office as of late. But I'll be getting out and finishing that up for the channel. So I'm just sharing all these things because for me, they've allowed me to focus on what I can control, what I can learn, and it has allowed me to make forward progress. So I also find that by doing this, by working, it really helps me stay level-headed and calm because it's easy to focus on all the challenges, but when I can focus on what I can actually do, it at least moves me forward. I'll put it that way. And I really want my experience or my community to experience that same level of tranquility in the storm that we're all going through, and to find things that you can do to actually move you forward. The thing is you can't stew in the world's problems if you're occupied building a better world for yourself. I really believe that. So at the end of the video, or rather the beginning of the video, I started off with the title, Is This the End of the World? It can be if you choose to view it that way. It can also be a time of abundance and preparation. But whether the world is ending, I believe it's really up to you and how you view it. And I would encourage you to stay calm, prep on, and let me know in the comments below what keeps you steady, what keeps you motivated to prepare. I'm sure that we can all benefit from your input by everybody reading in the comments section. As always, stay safe out there.